You know, when most people think of Utah, they think of world-class ski resorts, red rock canyons, and maybe the Great Salt Lake. What they probably don't picture is surfing. But here's the thing, that might be about to change. And if you own a home in Draper, or you're thinking about buying one, what I'm about to tell you affects you directly. Draper, Utah is in the middle of what may be the biggest transformation in history. We're talking about a brand new surf lagoon, a multi-billion-dollar city being built up from what used to be a prison, a Silicon Slopes tech corridor that's already reshaping the economy, and a real estate market that's quietly creeping up to a $900,000 medium home price. So today, we're gonna break that all down. What's being proposed, why some people love it, why some people have some serious concerns, and what all this growth means to the property values of one of Utah's most desirable cities. So let's get into it. So let's start with the headline that's been turning heads lately. The Veranda West development. Draper's City Council recently approved plans for a mixed-use development that on paper seems like it should belong on the California coastline. We're talking about a surf lagoon, restaurants, retail space, a Nordic spa, as well as residential units, all on a 13.5-acre site on the Wasatch Front. And this surf lagoon isn't just a novelty either. The developers are marketing this as a first-of-its-kind surf destination in the region. And get this, a future potential training site for the USA surf team. So that really isn't a small claim. That's the kind of thing that puts a city on the map nationally. Now, the project is being called Veranda West, and if everything goes according to plan, it could open as soon as 2028. It's entirely privately funded, which means the taxpayers aren't on the hook for this one. The city has absolutely no financial involvement, but and that is a big but, not everyone is celebrating. Obviously, the biggest question everybody's asking about is water. Specifically, how much water does a surf lagoon use, and where's the water coming from? And is that okay for a state that's been dealing with serious drought conditions for years? Here's what the project documents say. The surf lagoon is projected to use between 6 million gallons and 9 million gallons of water each year. To most of us, that number sounds enormous. And honestly, the concern is very understandable. We live in the middle of a desert. A local Draper resident put it plainly. He said, "People need water to drink, to live, for sanitation. Those are the priorities for me versus a water park." And that's a completely fair point. And when you're watching the Great Salt Lake shrink every year on the news, the skepticism around a surf lagoon in the desert makes a whole lot of sense. But here's where the story gets a little bit more nuanced. And it's also the part of the story that has kind of been buried by the headlines. Draper Mayor Troy Walker addressed this concern directly, and his argument is actually pretty compelling when you look at all the numbers. The land where Veranda West is proposed was already entitled for development. That means legally, the mayor can't say, no, nothing gets built there. The water rights for that property already exist. They were allocated no matter what eventually gets built on that site. So the real question isn't the surf lagoon versus no development. It's surf lagoon versus what else could go there. And when you run those numbers and take a closer look, the picture actually changes. Mayor Walker laid it out like this. The surf lagoon will use roughly 6 to 9 million gallons of water each year. An apartment complex on that exact same land, you're gonna be around 30 million gallons a year. And an office building, we're talking over 100 million gallons of water annually. Someone asked if this is the right time for a water-intensive project. His response to this is actually the lowest intensity water usage of anything that could legally go on that site. The only scenario that uses less water is if they were to build nothing on that site at all. And under current property law, that's just not an option that the city has. On top of that, the developers say the facility will operate as a closed-loop recycling system. It's designed to capture rainfall and snowfall, and to replace water that's lost to evaporation and splash out. So it's really not like they're just taking millions of gallons out of the tap and dumping it out. The system is designed to recycle and reuse. Now, is that perfect? Is it an ideal situation to build a surf lagoon in a state that's already in the middle of a prolonged drought? Reasonable people can disagree on that. Mayor Walker himself said people should absolutely continue to be concerned about water conservation. The concern is valid. But the math, at least as the city presents it, suggests that this development may be one of the more water responsible options for that particular piece of land. Okay, so the surf lagoon is interesting on its own, but if you really want to understand what's happening to Draper's character, and more importantly, its real estate market, you have to zoom way out. Because the surf lagoon is just part of what is, without exaggeration, the most dramatic transformation this city has ever seen. Let's talk about the point. I mean, really talk about it. Because as of right now, June 2026, the story is no longer just a plan on paper, it's actively happening. The point is a 600-acre redevelopment that's being built on the former site of the Utah State Prison. If you've driven I-15 between Salt Lake City and Provo the last couple of years, you've probably seen all the construction activity. What was once a state prison is now becoming what officials are calling an innovation community, and they're not exaggerating the scale of ambition here. So here's where things stand right now. All of 2025 was spent on underground infrastructure, roads, utilities, water lines, the bones of the entire neighborhood. All that invisible work is done. And so in 2026, the point goes vertical. Foundations are being poured, streets are being finalized, the first buildings are rising. A ceremonial groundbreaking for the initial private development will take place here in the next week or so, which means this is literally happening right now as you watch this video. And the first wave of construction includes some pretty significant things. We're talking about 408 apartment units, 400 affordable housing units, a 175-room hotel, over 110,000 square feet of retail space, and 30,000 square feet of office space. And that's just in the initial phase. The downtown core will be anchored by two signature developments called Chroma and Amber, which will all be connected by a walkable promenade with shops and restaurants. And there's a brand new announcement that just dropped in the last couple of weeks. The University of Utah Board of Trustees just authorized a $43.5 million land purchase for a full-scale hospital and medical campus at the Point. We're talking about roughly 46 acres dedicated to the University of Utah Health Campus. So think about what that means. You're not just getting apartments and restaurants at the Point anymore. You're getting a world-class hospital that's planting its flag in the midst of this corridor. This is a massive institutional anchor, the kind of thing that brings hundreds of jobs, prestige, and tells other institutions and employers that this is a place worth being. Construction on the medical campus is expected to start within the next 5 to 10 years, and university officials said they wouldn't be surprised if it starts even sooner. The broader vision for the Point includes over 2.3 million square feet of office space, over 3,300 residential units, a 60,000-foot event center, 16 acres of parks, and a new frontrunner commuter rail station. When it's fully built out, the Point is expected to house between 11,000 and 17,000 residents. Mayor Walker said he expects Draper's population to grow from 55,000 today to over 80,000, and the state's own economists project that this development will generate significant GDP and thousands of new jobs for the region over time. Now, layer on top of that the broader Silicon Slopes picture, because Draper doesn't exist in isolation. It sits at the heart of one of the fastest growing tech economies in the entire country. Silicon Slopes, that 30-mile stretch along I-15 that stretches from Salt Lake City down to Provo. It's now home to over 7,500 tech companies that employ over 175,000 workers, and it contributes roughly $25 billion of GDP to Utah's economy. Utah's tech sector has been growing at an annual rate of around 23%, and the state is on track to add over 50,000 tech jobs in 2026 alone. Tech unemployment in Utah is under 2%. Companies like Adobe, Microsoft, Oracle, Qualtrics, Pluralsight, Goldman Sachs, and dozens of fast-growing startups have major presence in this corridor. What all of this means is simple. Draper is not just a suburb anymore. It's becoming the connective tissue between two major economic centers, with a brand new urban district being built from scratch in the middle of it, anchored by a university hospital, served by transit, and now a one-of-a-kind surf destination. That combination is genuinely rare, and real estate markets price rarity very directly. Alright, so now let's get into what most of you came here for. What does all this mean for Draper home values right now, and where is the market heading? Let's start with the current snapshot because the numbers are interesting. As of mid-2026, the median sale price for a home in Draper is $929,000, which is actually up about 6% over a year ago. The average home value is around $803,000, with homes going pending in around 2 weeks for well-priced properties. Sales volume is up too. There were 42 closed sales in March compared to just 29 a year ago. That's a 45% increase in transaction volume. So the market is plenty active. Now, to be fair, the broader US housing picture in 2026 is more nuanced than a straight up seller's market. Statewide, about 58% of homes are selling below their list price. Inventory is rising, and buyers have more negotiating power than they did a couple of years ago. And that's actually healthy. The frenzy of 2021-2022 was unsustainable, and a more balanced market is better for long-term stability. But Draper, as it has consistently, is performing better than the statewide averages. The fundamentals here are stronger. So why does Draper hold its premium, and why might it grow from here? It comes down to 3 words: jobs, amenities, and scarcity. As far as jobs go, we just covered the Silicon Slopes picture. When you have 175,000 tech workers that are earning between $100,000 and $220,000 annually, and that workforce is continuing to grow, housing demand in the best located cities along that corridor doesn't soften, it tightens. Tech workers that are earning these strong salaries are what supports the $900,000 $500,000 price point. And it's a buyer pool that's expanding in Utah, not contracting. The Point is about to flip Draper's amenity profile in a major way. Right now, if you want an urban entertainment district, you have to drive to Salt Lake City. When the Point's promenade, restaurants, and event center come online, with a hospital system, transit access, and eventually hundreds of thousands of square feet of office space, that changes. The Point will bring amenities typically only seen in downtown Salt Lake City to the southern end of the valley, and that matters to buyers. Proximity to a vibrant, walkable district is a real premium driver. Then you add Veranda West and the Surf Lagoon. It's easy to dismiss the Surf Lagoon as a novelty, but what it actually represents to real estate is a signal. When a city can attract that level of lifestyle-oriented private investment, it tells you something about the trajectory of the market. Investors don't drop that kind of money into a neighborhood they don't believe in. The Surf Lagoon, whether you plan to surf or not, is a confidence signal about Draper's future. And on scarcity, Draper is geographically constrained. The Wasatch Mountains are to the east. The Jordan River and developed communities are to the west. Most of the undeveloped land in Draper is limited. The Point is actually one of the only large-scale development opportunities left in the Salt Lake Valley. New supply is coming, but it's not unlimited. And it's concentrated on that one district. Established residential Draper, things like Suncrest, the Steep Mountain area, as well as South Mountain, those areas aren't getting new competing supply, which means existing homes there retain their scarcity premium. Now let's be honest about the risks, because there are some real ones. First, the new supply coming in at the Point will affect the condo and apartment rental market. If you own rental condos in Draper today, you should know that 808 new apartment units are coming to the Point in phase 1 alone. That's 408 at market rate and 400 that are considered affordable. More rental inventory puts downward pressure on market rents, at least in the short term, and that's just a supply and demand. Second, mortgage rates are still sitting in the mid to upper 6% range. Now that's not catastrophic, but it is a real affordability constraint when average home prices are nearing $930,000. Buyers are still out there, but they're being more strategic. The days of 15 offers over the weekend are mostly behind us, at least for now. Third, traffic and infrastructure are real quality of life concerns. Adding thousands of residents and a major hospital to this corridor is going to put some stress on I-15 and other local roads. The front rudder station at the Point will help, but it's not a full solution. If you're planning on buying something near the Point, you're going to want to factor in a longer commute time than you would today. But here's the bigger picture that I keep coming back to. Draper does have a leadership team that has been thinking through all these different scenarios for years. The Point isn't a surprise that just suddenly landed on them. The city has been a big part of the planning process. The infrastructure investment, the transit connection, the approach to zoning and development. These reflect a city that understands what it is becoming, and they're trying to manage it well. And that really matters when it comes to the long-term property values in Draper. So let's put it all together, because depending on where you sit, this story means very different things. If you're a current Draper homeowner, the outlook looks genuinely good. You're sitting in a city with multiple simultaneous tailwinds. A major urban development going vertical right now. A University of Utah hospital campus coming. A tech economy that's outperforming the national average. And a surf and lifestyle destination on the way. Your home's value is supported by structural demand drivers that aren't going away anytime soon. The near-term market might not look as great as 2021, but the long-term trajectory is clearly upward. If you're thinking about buying a home in Draper, this is a market where the window before major transformation closes is actively shutting. The Point is going vertical. The groundbreaking is happening within the month, and it's probably happened at the time that you're watching this video. In 2 or 3 years, when the first buildings open up, the promenade fills with restaurants, and the front runner station is operational, Draper's identity will have shifted in a way that's fully visible and reflected in the prices. And the buyers who get in before that moment tend to look very smart in hindsight. That said, go in with clear eyes. Do your math very carefully at today's interest rates. Get pre-approved and know which neighborhood you're targeting and why. And if you're an investor, the most interesting opportunity might be in the hospitality and rental space adjacent to Veranda West. A surf lagoon, a Nordic spa, and potential USA surf team training sites create visitor draw that doesn't currently exist in Draper. And that's a market inefficiency that will not last forever. Properties within reasonable proximity to Veranda West could develop rental profiles that look very different from what they look like today. And if you're just watching from the outside, maybe considering a move to the Utah market in the future, keep your eyes on Draper. The convergence of the Point, Silicon Slopes, the University of Utah expansion, and lifestyle investments like Veranda West make this one of the most compelling growth stories in the Mountain West right now. Look, Change is always a mix of exciting and uncomfortable. Draper residents who have concerns over growth, water, and how this changes their community are asking the right questions. Those conversations are worth having, and they're clearly happening. But when you step back and you look at the full picture, what you're seeing is a city that's leveling up in a real and measurable way. That's a story that's worth paying attention to, whether you own here, want to own here, or just want to understand where the Utah market is heading. If this video was helpful at all, consider hitting the like button and drop a comment below. I'd love to know where you stand on the issue, and if you're commenting as a current homeowner, a future homeowner, or someone that's just interested in the Utah market. And be sure to hit subscribe if you'd like more deep dives into Utah real estate. I plan on posting a video every single week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.